taps once more. The fire sighs, the dog burps, the moment passes, and the... If you've pressed play on this, then you, like so many before you, have made the noble decision to fall asleep to something mildly educational and quietly depressing. You are probably lying in bed, blanket up to your chin, phone dimmed to the brightness of a dying candle, wondering what corner of history we're wandering into tonight. And the answer, I'm afraid, is the corner that smells faintly of smoke, onions, and regret. We're not talking about kings, knights, or noble deeds. No. Tonight, we're visiting the forgotten end of the street, the kind of place historians politely skip over in textbooks and where tourists in medieval reenactment towns pretend not to look. Welcome to the brothel. Yes, the medieval brothel, a place that sits somewhere between an inn, a tavern, and a health hazard. A building that worked as the social glue of medieval towns, holding together the desperate, the lonely, the drunk, and the very confused. If the castle was where power lived, and the monastery where hope resided, the brothel was where reality slept, usually on a lumpy straw mattress shared by too many people and one determined goat. Tonight, we're not here for scandal or spice. Oh no, this is boring history for sleep. The only thing you're in danger of experiencing is mild amusement, maybe a tiny chuckle, and an overwhelming urge to thank your ancestors for inventing showers. Our journey is slow, methodical, and just cozy enough that you might forget how much it smells like ale and damp wood in here. Take a deep breath. Imagine the stale air, the hum of chatter, the flickering tallow candles that cast everyone in the flattering shade of questionable decisions. You're safe here, or at least as safe as anyone could be in a building where the floorboards move when you don't. Pull your blanket close, because we're traveling back to a time when bathing was optional, payment was suspicious, and personal space was a myth. Subscribe and ring the bell icon and never miss our next video. Let's begin. Picture a medieval city, crooked rooftops, stone towers leaning slightly from centuries of questionable construction, streets so narrow 2 horses can't pass without one apologizing. Somewhere in that maze of alleys and shadows lies the beating heart of human desperation, warm, loud, and perpetually sticky. That's where we're going tonight. And if you make it through until morning, congratulations, you'll have survived what countless medieval patrons could not: a night in the brothel. You find yourself walking through the lower district, the kind of neighborhood polite people pretend not to know exists. It's late. The sky above is bruised purple, moonlight barely pushing through the chimney smoke. Every window drips with condensation and gossip. The cobblestones gleam wet beneath your boots, slick from a recent rain that has done absolutely nothing to improve the smell. The air here is alive. Not in a fresh, pastoral way, more in the sense of you're definitely inhaling several kinds of bacteria. There's a scent of roasted onions, burning tallow, and humanity clinging to survival. It's oddly comforting if you ignore the faint tang of open sewer and lost hope. The sounds of the district form their own symphony: tin cups clattering, laughter spilling from doorways, a lute string snapping in protest. Someone argues about dice, someone else sings out of tune. Somewhere a donkey coughs in perfect rhythm. This is the soundtrack of medieval nightlife. Chaotic, slightly tragic, and surprisingly musical if you tilt your head. As you turn the corner, you see it. A crooked wooden sign swinging on iron hooks, squealing each time the wind shifts. On it, a crude painting of a heart, or possibly a radish. Either way, it marks the entrance to the establishment of the evening. The brothel stands proud in its decay, a 3-story structure that leans just enough to make you nervous. The roof is tiled with ambition more than craftsmanship, and the windows glow with a tired yellow light that suggests someone inside has already given up. From the outside, it looks almost welcoming, like a warm inn if you squint and have low standards. You step closer. The door, swollen from centuries of humidity and questionable mopping, resists your knock. When it finally opens, it does so with a groan that sounds almost alive. You're met immediately by a wave of air so thick you could butter it. Inside, light flickers in uneven pools, candles struggling to stay lit in the drafts, smoke curling upward to stain the beams black. The smell is indescribable, but let's try anyway. Part spilled ale, part wet wool, part something ancient and unidentifiable that's probably best left to historians and brave noses. Your footboards move underfoot, sticky in places where spilled beer has fossilized. A cat darts between your legs, vanishing under a table that lists gently to one side. Everywhere you look, something's either tilting, dripping, or judging you. In the corner, a man snores into a tankard. 2 women laugh softly by the fire, their laughter edged with exhaustion. A figure in a cloak counts coins under the table, the universal medieval pastime. The place is alive, barely, and you've just joined the cast. You find a seat near the hearth, mostly because it's the only one not actively collapsing. The fire pops. The heat feels good. Outside, you can still hear the city, the distant bells, the soft clatter of cartwheels, but in here, time feels slower. It's not peaceful exactly, more resigned. The kind of calm that comes from knowing tomorrow won't be better, but at least you'll have the same soup. A low voice murmurs behind you, "Pay first." You turn. The woman standing there isn't smiling, but she's not unkind either. Her eyes are sharp, calculating, the kind of gaze that can measure a man's honesty and his wallet at the same time. She doesn't introduce herself. She doesn't need to. This, dear listener, is the madam. But that's a story we'll get to in a moment. For now, sit back in your rickety chair, feel the warmth of the fire on your face, and listen to the soft crackle of candle wax and distant regret. You've arrived, and you won't be leaving any cleaner than you came in.
The woman watching you isn't dressed like the paintings suggest. There's no velvet, no lace, no perfume strong enough to hide the reality of the building. Her gown is plain brown wool, practical and patched at the seams, more suited for bookkeeping than seduction. A string of beads circles her neck, not for fashion, but counting. Every bead, you suspect, represents a debt owed, a secret kept, or a promise she intends to collect on. Her hair, streaked with gray and pinned under a linen veil, gives her the air of someone who's seen far too much and plans to see more purely out of spite. She's not cruel exactly, just efficient. You get the feeling that if the city burned to the ground, she'd still be here by morning, sweeping the ashes into neat piles and charging rent for them. New? She asks, her voice carrying the weight of every night she's had to ask that same question. You nod, unsure if this counts as admission or surrender. She squints at you through the candlelight, as if trying to decide whether you're a potential customer, a thief, or just another lost pilgrim in search of poor life choices. Probably all three. The room hushes a little as she steps closer. Even the cat pauses mid-wash. There's respect here. Not the reverent kind reserved for priests or kings, but the practical respect you give to someone who controls the roof, the food, and the locks on the doors. She runs this place, she says, simply. Her tone leaves no room for doubt. This is not a tavern, not a charity. You pay, you behave, you don't bleed on the floorboards. Those are the rules. You nod again, partly out of fear, partly because your brain hasn't quite caught up to her efficiency. She notices, of course. Madams notice everything. Coin first, she adds, holding out a hand. You fumble with your pouch. The coins jingle, betraying your inexperience. She doesn't even count them, just weighs them in her palm like a jeweler judging the purity of your decisions. Enough, she mutters. For now. Her eyes flick toward the room, scanning it like a captain checking her ship before a storm. Every woman, every patron, every flickering candle, she knows where it all is. She's memorized the rhythm of this building, and you can tell she's the only thing keeping it from collapsing into total anarchy. Someone at the far table starts a song, one of those crude ballads about love and taxes. The madam doesn't even look up. With a single raised eyebrow, she silences him. It's not magic, it's just power. The quiet kind that doesn't need to shout. She gestures toward a chair and pours you something that looks vaguely like ale and tastes vaguely like regret. Drink, she says. If you're staying the night, you'll need courage. If you're working, you'll need luck. If you're doing neither, you'll need to leave before sunrise. The fire crackles again, filling the pause with warmth and smoke. You sip the drink, pretending it doesn't burn on the way down. It does.